go. There's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GuMPer morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GuMPer. Hey, GuMPers.
Hola, bon dia, alegria. Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show. How are you this morning? Tudo bem? Como estás? Do let me know in the chat, please. We got a 3-duck rating this morning already from T-Duck. I wonder if he's smashed that like button yet already, or if Deagle will have something to say about that. Deagle was first in with the look of it at 6:51. We'll come back to your weather report. Great to see you here, Pete, as well. Where were you yesterday in all the excitement? And yes, I was told I was gabbling a bit yesterday. I was so excited yesterday. So forgive me if I was talking as though I'd had 3 shredded wheat, or I was like one of those powdered-nosed politicians. I didn't mean to be quite so vigorous as I may have come across yesterday, but I was so excited. Packed show for you this morning. João Oliveira from Mushmore. Mushmore, get it? João Oliveira will be joining us at 9. At 9:30, Em Mamabear McGowan joins us to talk about death and dying in Portugal. Oh, yes, upbeat and cheerful. Us. No, but seriously, grasping that nettle, tackling the taboo, and talking about death and dying in Portugal, something we need to know something about, I would say, for when the inevitable comes. And we'll talk more to Emma at... like she's Emma. Yes, Mama. Let's call her Mama Bear, shall we? At 9:30 for the new feature. And we're going to do it every month. It's called the Departure Lounge. Thank you to Garvo for that. James is in as well, as is Coach Turner, talking about the rear knee. That sounds interesting. T-Duck, of course, is here with deep thoughts of the day and a Portuguese saying as well. Fantastic. And the dad jokes, including jokes about ducks and cats and clean houses. Okay, so those to look forward to later on in the show as well. João Oliveira is here already. Look, great morning, early birds. João, looking forward to talking to you at 9. Sustainability in Portugal, of course. Randy is here, and we had his lovely video of flamingos, which I didn't say much about. It was quite extraordinary to see so many flamingos up there at Barra in Aveiro, and while he was out on his cycle ride. Thank you for your videos and your pics and your events, by Randy. Stephen's here as well. Darren, Sarah, I will reply to your message. I did get it. Paul's in as well this morning. Baddy, Lloyd, good morning. Joining us with your morning coffee. Hope your eye's okay. And who else is in this morning? Lee McGrady. Great job last night on the gardening Q&A, Lee. Fantastic job telling us how to be safe in the garden and how to prepare for winter as well, of course. And Pete telling us about Fundão Market. We'll come back to that, Pete. Thank you very much indeed. Now, people were a little bit disappointed yesterday as well as giving me notes on talking too fast, which I probably was doing in my excitement. Where's Mrs. M as well? Some people tuned in specifically to see Mrs. M because we've been doing publicity that had the picture of both of us. Oh, Bob's in as well from Amsterdam. Thank you for your video, your commute video yesterday from Amsterdam. We'll try and squeeze that in as well, Bob. Anything that anyone sends. What's this? That phone number's not right, is it? If you try and send to WhatsApp 0035191, that's not going to get very far. 913-590-303. I'll put that right on the screen in just a moment. And anything that's coming in I haven't shared with you, feel free to prompt me. Munson, I sent you this and you didn't show it yet. We have got a bulging sack of correspondence, so it can be a little bit difficult, of course, when you have a bulging sack. But we'll work our way through it and make sure that everything comes to the screen at some point. And a bon dia alegria from both of us over there in Amsterdam, I think, as well. Where was I going with that? I can't remember. Oh yes, Mrs. M, because we have a new feature, and we have threatened as well that Mrs. M will do a little bit of hosting and co-hosting. Well, she's here this morning. We better get on with talking to her because she has. You think I'm a good multitasker? I am nothing. I'm nothing without her, and I'm nothing compared to her. Let's bring her on now, shall we? and gentlemen.
Hey, can you hear me okay? Just checking.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely hear you. Thank you. Good morning to you. How lovely it is to see you on the screen. Don't you live in my house?
Yes, I do. And the funny thing is, it looks like it's daylight where you are, and it looks like it's nighttime with this lighting that I've got.
It does. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. Could have tidied up. Anyway, thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone.
Isn't she lovely? 2-3 million views on Expats Everywhere now, I think, is it? With your What He Didn't Tell You.
It's 300 and I think it's 330, isn't it?
Not too bad at all. That's
30,000.
That's more than any of us have done, all put together in one single video. So we thought it's obviously an interesting and important theme to people. What he didn't tell you. That's when Josh spoke to me first of all, and the phrase "be Portuguese" came up. And I am the Portuguese Pollyanna. Positivity.
You definitely are.
Yeah, don't like to look too. I'm getting better at looking at the dark side. I mean, we're talking about death and dying for God's sake later on today. So I'm doing a better job than I might have been accused of doing before. But you're the one who likes to talk about mold and damp and stuff like that, aren't you? And you go there. And we thought we would make that a regular feature. So,
I'm not going to be talking about mold and damp every single day.
Oh, really?
I just want to like add a little bit of levity and share some of the things from a female perspective. Like, you guys are sort of like big picture, and often us women, without making some massive gender faux pas, we're we're managing, lives in a slightly different way, so I want to tell it like it is from a female perspective.
Good. Okay. So, any questions for Mrs. M for as long as she can be kept here and doesn't have to go off and make me a nice cup of tea? Let's do that. More gender trouble. Mrs. M. Yes, look at it. Mrs. M from Tea Duck. Very popular this morning. Mrs. M tune sounds like Bewitched from the 70s.
It does. That's what I liked about it, Dougal. Yes. I loved it when Carl was playing me a few, and I said, that's the one I want.
Yes.
But I don't want it that long, thank you. And I'm going to change a photo on that.
That's the first time you said that to me. Anyway.
I forgot to say, who doesn't like a bulging sack first thing in the morning?
Exactly, and I've got to do
missed that one.
It's becoming quite uncomfortable, I've got to tell you. So yes, can you wiggle your nose like is that the same series when she used to just twink? Let's just zoom in a minute.
No, I have to wiggle my mouth.
Okay, you're right, nearly then. Carl, I think you live in Mrs. M's house. Yes, correction. Yeah. Noted, thank you. And Gary, after yesterday's show, I had my first ever turkey egg. And constipated for 6 weeks now as a result. That's probably a big bad boy. Gary, first ever turkey egg, courtesy of João Delicious. You can see that in our YouTube channel, of course, the YouTube library, that segment of Garvo over at the lovely Quinta das Lameiras near Tomar there. Look at this, a simple Luisa from Owen. We've got your juice of the day. It is spinach, apple, cucumber, and lemon. Mrs. M, you might like that.
I would, yeah.
Make Louisa from James as well this morning. Bon dia, Louisa. Very good. And Garvo, they are awesome animals. The turkeys can't wait to get some more after we have finished our first one. Oh my God. Morning, Munsons from Portugal.
Good morning.
And ours never get old enough to lay eggs.
Oh, wow.
No, that's ominous, isn't it?
I tell you what we've got that are really great, and they start laying straight away within 6 or 7 weeks, and that's quails. We've got a lovely little pair of quail hens, and we get eggs from them every day. Although I did tread on one last week accidentally, and it stopped laying, but hopefully it'll come back round.
Well, you could say it's permanently laying in a different sense. But who doesn't like a gender faux pas in the morning? Nice one, John. Hey! And my father used to keep turkeys. He swore the eggs were amazing. I thought that was going to be a dad joke, and it kind of tailed off at the end. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
I've got a friendly fly that's joined us. It's one of the last ones of the season, hopefully.
Always happens, doesn't it? Just when you... Yes, that'll get you wiggling your nose in a bewitched style.
Look.
So, Mrs. M, what is your solution then to a mouldy basement? Do you want to address this once and for all then? What he doesn't tell you.
Well, I'll hold my hands up and say I've never had a mouldy basement. It's all kept nice and clean and whatnot down there.
White vinegar.
No, what I was going to say is I've missed it by a couple of days actually. You know that first sensation when you get into bed at night and you pull back the covers and all of a sudden the covers feel a bit different. They're a bit cooler suddenly. That, in my estimation, is the moment when you need to get your dehumidifier out and start using it. So like we didn't cotton on to this for a couple of years. And like basically the dehumidifier, if we run it for about 2 hours every day, it will take something like 2 liters of water out of the air. That's just how damp it gets really, really quickly here. I mean, this is a very, very damp place. And in fact, when we first came to Caldash, I had a lovely osteopathy session with somebody who said, don't move to Caldash. It's a great place, but if you suffer from any kind of dampness or like yeast imbalance or anything like that, it has something a bit like what people have in Bristol in the UK, which is the nasal drip.
Yes.
So as the sun sets, and the sea mist comes in, there's something quite unique to Caldash that gives people a little bit of a runny nose. So yeah, damp is a bit of an issue on the Silver Coast, but also all throughout Portugal, or, you know, from what I've noticed. So the dehumidifier, and what we do first thing in the mornings is we just open our windows wide for a couple of hours, even if it's freezing cold. Now, in the UK...
Let sea mist in.
Well, yeah, but to at least freshen the air and cycle it through. But like most of us that are probably listening, if they're in the UK or the US or Australia or something like that, or Canada, you've probably got heating in your homes. And in all the homes we've rented, which is quite a lot since we've been in Portugal, we've only had one that really had really good sort of underfloor heating, and the rest were just not quite the same as the heating you'd get in the UK. And so we have our heating on, and so we live in quite dry environments. And so what you'll be smelling now, if you're in the rural parts or even, you know, in a place with residencies, is that familiar smell of wood smoke. So people are starting to light their fires already, even if it's actually quite warm. I think the Portuguese are programmed ready to know just to get drying out their insides, not their insides, but the inside of their homes.
So like it's swallowing sacks of silica gel and drying out. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean something else. If you've got like, I mean, they love their big, thick wardrobes here. They're fitted wardrobes, and if you've got like a guest room and you've got no one staying in it, then just open the doors and leave them open until someone's staying in it, so that there's not these closed off spaces. Because what I've noticed with our wooden doors, where if we move to, once it starts to get into damp season, then the wooden doors start to go darker, and they kind of they're actually absorbing little microscopic bits of moisture, and then when the spring comes again, they lighten. So there's all these
like
kinds of changes going on.
Like
absolutely.
A hygrometer which measures damp. So yes, yes, it's something to be aware of. Unless, of course, you like that smell, which many of us may remember from our childhoods of going to stay with a mad aunt or something who never aired her house. And those smells are pretty important part, aren't they, of our childhood? So you might like that, and you might want to accentuate it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you might like that, and if you do, you might want to also add in some mothballs or cabbage soup.
That's right.
Which is a real favourite here.
I've never managed to hit a moth with a mothball. There's got to be a better way of dealing with moths than that. Okay, so we're putting this onto the screen now. This is going to be a regular feature, and you are going to be hosting and co-hosting as well. I think you'll bring your own guests on here. Are there any requests for Mrs. M? Who would you like her to speak to, and when? I'm already feeling a little bit insecure about that, but I'm sure I'll cope. I've got a psychotherapist. I can speak to James on a Monday about any insecurities I have in that department. Feedback coming in: quails, yum.
Yeah, we haven't eaten them yet, so
no, we haven't. And you can't dip soldiers into a quail egg. That is true, unless they're those little models.
They make really sweet little fried eggs, though. They're so cool.
They do.
And the kids love making like little smiley faces with 2 eyes, and you know.
Yeah, and you could actually
they want to improvise a smile with
Politos crisps, couldn't you? The little chipstick type, and you could use those and dip those into a quail's egg. But I'm told, and I haven't fact checked this, so please don't get us thrown off Facebook for saying that we think a quail's egg has the same amount of nutrition in it as a hen's egg. But that's supposed to be true, isn't it? It packs a little punch, does the quail's egg?
And that's what the lady in Agrologia told me. So
it must be true. Fantastic. Okay. Damp, cold conditions in Belfast. Talking about damp this morning. Bad for people with asthma, of course. That's why I love the Algarve. Even December, January, and February, it's warm, drier, milder. The 10-day blast of heat, great for overall health, joints, and chest. Yes. Rossio, also good for your joints as well. And your weather report was it was down to 6 degrees in Belfast last night. Should double that by 1 p.m. Expected high of 13 degrees. Go on, Mrs. M.
I mean, what I would say is, like, you know, if you're actually in Portugal at the moment or planning on coming out, you know, and experiencing an autumn here, I mean, during the day, it's usually really quite warm. I mean, it's raining outside, but you could still just be in. I mean, I'm in a t-shirt with a light cardi. So really all you need to do is not so much hit the heating, but start with the dehumidifier. Once you start dehumidifying, it just dries out and everything feels so much warmer. Because like if you touch the walls, I'm touching this wall now and it feels really cold. But a lot of the internal walls of the way these houses are built, if you touch the walls, they'll really start to feel damp and cold. So you just want to get as much of the damp out. And also, like if you've got like they're quite fond of these rag type rugs here, you know, like these like rugs that you can chuck in your washing machine. They're really quite handy to have on the floors.
Look like they've been made by prisoners, those kinds of rugs.
Yeah, because if you've got tile floors, which I'm guessing lots of you will have here, the tile floors can get a bit sticky, you know, if the humidity gets too much, and then they can actually get quite wet. We actually lived somewhere where we were actually pretty much on the water table, and actually as the water rose up in the winter, our tiles actually started to absorb the water from underneath. So it was at some time, it was almost like having a skating rink, wasn't it, Carl? It was really unpleasant. We just had to put rugs down the whole time and move out of there as soon as we could.
Yes, indeed. Yes, it was like a different kind of rising damp coming up and concentrating on the tiles.
I mean, we have experienced a few different situations, it has to be said.
Tile life does, or azulejo life does take a little bit of getting used to. You got to be a bit keener on the wiping. Kids as well. No socks, no running around in socks in the house. And so unforgiving on the mobiles, right? You thought it was bad enough dropping your phone in UK or
like
US.
Horribly scratched and cracked.
Despite the case, yes,
It's got a few more cracks just from yesterday.
You can get the black lightning on it, as James was saying the other day. So any questions for Mrs. M? Anything you wanted to share with us specifically? I do know that thing that you were talking about, Mrs. M, the first nights of getting into bed and the duvet feels a little bit damp to the touch. That is something to get used to. October is phenomenal in Portimao, best weather of the year. So that nice down there in the Algarve then.
Well, I mean, that is pretty cool actually, because the weather doesn't normally stay damp like throughout the whole of the winter like it would do in the UK. I mean, what you've got is this amazing situation where it does rain and then you get some cheery weather as well. And quite often we get this lovely Indian summer. We have every year we've been here for the last 5 years. And if you get cold in the house, you just need to spend more time outdoors, because these houses are designed to keep the cold out. And they're not so useful in the winter. You know, we live in them very differently to how we might be in the UK.
Absolutely.
And maybe the US.
And so this theme will continue. Gary's working on a series of videos about buying properties here in Portugal and what to look out for, with some useful insights and tips from people who already live here. Watch this space. So proper ventilation of your house. It's a new kind of regime culture to get used to, of airing the house. You remember that when we first arrived here and we just wanted to have all the shutters up and the windows open all of the time? No, that's not what you do, folks, as much as you might be tempted to do so. My counsellor is waiting for me if I suffer from any insecurity with you taking over the show. I shouldn't probably put it quite like that. So this is a question from Lord Gilchrist. What hasn't he told us? What comes to mind? What I haven't told
anybody? There's so many different things. But I mean, what I'll do is I'll just you know, think about the theme of the show. I mean, this kind of fits in really well. So we're talking about mushrooms, you know, so we're talking about fungus and mold, and then we're talking about the death and dying cycle today. And you know, cycles of change, and we've just changed seasons. So this is perfect.
Yes. Okay. You have a request to bring astrologers, please. What is the collective noun for astrologers? An argument, isn't it?
I don't know. Probably a rational of astrologers, because a lot
Constellation.
of a constellation, that's a good one.
Yes,
A
please.
constellation of astrologers. They can be quite rational.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
they like to look at the sort of the mathematical equations and patterns that astrology creates.
Yes. Oh, serious question now. We'll come back to that. Thanks for all my hole greasing, and finally, I don't think that's for you. And finally, getting the washing open, mate. Mrs. B is also very grateful for G tidying up her bush. But a little vignette
It
of
sounds
life
like a
there.
personal message.
It does. Sorry, did you mean to send that publicly, Pete? Hey, what was the hardest thing about moving to Portugal for your family that Carl
Yeah.
underestimated? Asking for myself not to embarrass Carl. Thank you very
No,
much.
no, that's a fantastic question, Darren.
It
I really
is.
appreciate you asking that. The hardest thing is actually understanding that when you make one of these massive life changes, everything is harder. Even if you're in a lovely warm place and there's new food and this, that, and the other, the moment you have to do anything that might be slightly tricky, you just need to times it by a factor of maybe 5 or 10, and appreciate that you're under a lot more stress. So when we've had ups, they've been great, but when we've had downs, they've been a lot harder. There's a lot of couples that move out and later their relationships crumble or dissolve. They almost have to reset their expectations because it puts a lot of stress on people. I've noticed a phenomenon, you know, with people when they come out, they initially look like they've had a facelift because they're relaxed and they're in a new country and they're enjoying all of it. But within about 3 months or so, they all start to age quite dramatically. And of course, over the last couple of years, we've had like the COVID thing going on as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that people, you know, in adapting to a new pace of life, there's all sorts of extra pressures that you just can't quite factor in. And if your relationship doesn't feel as secure, if there's some unspoken parts of your relationship, the additional stress of trying to hold it all together whilst you're in a massive learning curve is extreme.
Yeah.
So I would absolutely say to anyone that's you know, preparing to make a move is get to know your partner as best you can, get to know yourself as best you can, and look at all those parts of you that you're too afraid to go to because they will reveal themselves quite quickly on arrival.
And would you suggest lubricating them as well? Those parts essential for external.
I just think you've got to get really into a forgiving space with each other as well.
Oh my
You know,
goodness.
and
Okay.
if you're moving on your own, it's important to forgive yourself, you know, for not being able to do everything in quite the same way you would at home. Now,
Well said.
funnily enough,
Well
Gary
said.
was doing a lovely plug for the series that he's doing. I think that's amazing. I'm actually interviewing a lot of people that have been through the migration process, some
Yeah.
who've returned, some who've migrated, not all just to Portugal, but all around the world.
Yeah.
I've got at least 30 people that I'm interviewing about the ups and downs. So if anyone is here that's listening today that wants to share some of their stories with me to go into a bigger series that will help people make a really informed decision and really know if it's for them or not, then give me a shout. It's
Fantastic.
can I use the GMP email or?
Yes, of course. Why don't you have
Okay.
Louisa at goodmorningportugal.com? How about that?
There you go. I haven't even used it yet, but Louisa at GMP or goodmorningportugal.com.
Yes,
Drop me
indeed.
an email there and I'll set up a recording with you. But yeah, it's a huge thing and it's something that I'm really wanting to explore with people
Well, who
and
doesn't
help them
like a
through.
huge thing? Who doesn't like a huge thing first thing in the morning? Brian is on WhatsApp. Morning, Carl. Is the morning show cancelled today? No, it's not, Brian. We're on a new channel. We're just sending anyone else
Bless.
who's lost in action here.
Mm.
Can we send them the Good Morning Portugal link? Where's Moaz? You know, where's Eusebio? Let's send the new channel link to them and make sure they're here for the party as well. Wise words, says Paul. But it all works out. Thanks, Louisa, for answering that
Do
question.
you know
Can I
what?
ask
It doesn't always all work out.
you see, that's what he doesn't tell you.
Yeah, like I'm gonna be honest, you know, like I've been speaking to some of these people who've been through this process and who've moved several times. And it doesn't always work out as we're expecting, though usually a year or two later we might get the final hindsight of why that particular phase didn't work out because something better was coming along. And a lot of it just depend on your unique worldview. You know, do you believe that everything does work out for a good reason at the end, or not? You know, a lot of it depends on your sort of spiritual or faith, I guess. But yeah, it doesn't always work out. But you do get to learn more about yourself and your relationship with the world, for sure.
Yeah, well, Paul's got some great marriage guidance tips. I have had his counsel on that
Have
subject.
you?
Quick
What,
question.
on our marriage?
I would rather not say. João Oliveira is joining us soon, which is fantastic. I hope you can stick around for that, Mrs. M, for a little while at least to meet João. And a quickie then, let's do this again. This has flown by this first half hour. I can't believe it. Do you intend for your little ones to go to any clubs or classes to connect more with the Portuguese kids and learn the language? You're homeschooling, aren't you? Sorry if I got that wrong. What would you say to, let's generalize that, and you know, the whole thing of getting kids going to classes. We did send them to drama, didn't we? And I think our eldest, there was an exercise, wasn't there? And the drama class leader said, has anyone given anything up? Because they were doing Lent. And our 10-year-old said smoking. That's his strange sense of humor, because he's not actually given up smoking, I can assure you.
He's not a smoker.
It does work well, doesn't it, to get him along to those things? But it can be a bit of an effort, and it's a great idea. What would you say?
I'm all for them doing any kind of class that they want, and also doing any kind of schooling that they want. Absolutely. I'm not so of the same mindset that you have to integrate in the way that everybody thinks you have to, because if you don't, then you won't integrate. I've lived a lot of my adult life in other countries, not speaking the native language, and integrated just fine. So I think a lot of it's attitude. What I really want for my kids is that they know how to fit in wherever they go. And that they have enough language to do that. And we've got really good coaches around us. We've got really good teachers. I'm also learning with them. I think it's really important that the parents do it with them. You know, if you're expecting kids to go somewhere, but you're not prepared to go there yourself, then it's never going to work. And I also think things happen when they're ready to happen. I think there's a lot of pressure put on kids to get straight into school, and then you get that advantage and do this and that and the other. I prefer to do things in a way that work, you know, when my kids are showing a readiness. And I've not been let down yet. You know, what I've noticed is when kids do things at the right time for them, when it feels right for them, when they've got the motivation, then things just go really easy rather than making it a big old fight. So I don't want to kind of punish my kids for us moving out here. And fight them.
That's not the reason you did it.
I mean, a lot of people have made comments that maybe we're using an independent schooling system just so that we don't have to integrate. But in actual fact, we would be doing the same if we're in the UK. So we're not actually being purposefully different because we're here and we don't want to integrate. It's more that this is actually how we'd be in the UK, or if we're in Finland or in America or anywhere. We just have a preference to be quite close-knit and to really work with our kids and enjoy watching them learn, and also have the freedom to learn wherever we go at any time.
There you go. Love the reply.
Yeah, I hope that helps. It's good to get it's good to really clarify it, I think.
Yeah, love the reply. Thanks, Louisa. So we'll do this again.
Hey, Louise.
Here to answer what he doesn't tell you. Great start to that feature, Mrs. M. It is 1 minute past 9, so it'll be
We need to get João on, don't we?
We need to get João on for sure. Let's give him a nice round of applause and bring him onto the screen. Woo! All right. João,
morning, João.
How are you? To the way.
Can't hear you.
Oh, we need you to unmute there, João. There we
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was a grand opening. Thank you. Now you can hear, right?
We love a grand opening first thing in the morning.
Yeah, let's go.
We're talking. I think I saw you commenting on social media somewhere about sustainability. That is exactly what you're about. That's what your company stands for. I think that's what you as a human being stand for in life, is addressing sustainability in a very meaningful way here in Portugal. The word gets bandied about quite a lot, doesn't it? Especially by politicians and greenwashers. Sustainability. It's one of the all the good words get kind of undermined, don't they? Politically, I would say. But it sounds to me like you're doing amazing work. Could you tell us more about yourself by way of introduction?
Okay, so I'm João Oliveira, and I'm the founder of Mushmore Cooperative. Then Mushmore Cooperative, after the big fires in 2017, created a brand called Ecolução. It's Ecolution. Okay, so it's ecological solutions. And on the purpose of sustainability, yes, there are a lot of meanings that are being modeled to the purposes of those that use them. But actually, sustainability, it's all about autonomy. It's all about independence. So if you see in any nation, the first date, the most important date, it's the Independence Day. So yeah, actually, so sustainability should be for every one of us, actually, our Independence Day. If we are sustainable, then we don't need those that are actually taking our wealth away or our health away also. So sustainability, it's not needing so much the big corps of fuels. Sustainability, it's not needing so much the food retailers. Sustainability is not needing so much those house builders that have all our houses full of moist and molds. Sustainability, yeah, actually, sustainability, it's being able to provide your own needs, actually, and in a way that they are eternally available for you. So if you are not sustainable, then you are spending resources. If you are sustainable, then you are building resources. And every time that you build a resource for yourself and for others, you will be more powerful, way more powerful than power of politicians is. So that's pretty much what I could say about sustainability. Carl,
I'm so glad you did. That was fantastic, because sustainability, you could say, as be, swapping your plastic bag for a bag for life. And this is how people can, there's nothing wrong with that. Every little gesture helps. But I love how deep you've gone with it there. And we are certainly talking the same language as you. We're launching a feature on Thursday called Indie Portugal, where we want to celebrate the independent brands. We want to help people move away from the corporations. I mean, it's pretty serious at the moment, isn't it? The level of corporate. I was going to use the word interference in our lives, but I love what you're saying there. Sustainability is about independence. And when you're truly sustainable, you're not just consuming, you're actually growing something. Now, this is quite a big aim, isn't it? How is it going, and what are you practically doing in Portugal, and how can people get involved in that?
Well, it actually goes step by step. Baby steps would be the perfect strategy for each every one of us. So if we go one step at a time, then we are building our house of sustainability, our house of independence, brick by brick. Starting by the foundation. So if you want to be sustainable, yes, you can start over your bag for life. Then you are independent of buying a new bag every time that you go to the supermarket. So that's a pretty good metaphor for everything else. So once you build a constellation, now not for using Mrs. M words, now that if you use a constellation of sustainable facts, of sustainable resources, then you will be creating a new universe of life, a new reality of life, in which you actually will only need to be there for others and see what others can have for you, not really needing every time that we move. Actually, we need to go to the petrol station. Every time that we eat, we need to go to the supermarket. And if we actually manage to find ways, and there are a lot of ways. Yes, there are ways that we can also not go to the petrol station. It is called biogas, and it's being done in the third world, on developing countries. So what you can see, for example, with this example on developing countries that they are doing and that we are not, then we can see how much big corps are interfering in our own lives, and then we can. Yeah, it's amazing. They are the developing countries. We should be the first world, but they are the ones that are pushing this technology, this sometimes even basic and primitive technology that really goes a long way in people's lives, empowering communities, empowering women, empowering disabled people. So that's pretty much our step by step that we should go, realizing that every aspect of our first world, well developed country reality is being taken from us, or is being taken over for us, as we also accept it in a very comfortable way, because then we don't need to bother about it. Once consciousness goes on that level, then we can actually, within the community, start building a lot of resources that allow us not to depend so much on B corps that actually don't really work for our well-being.
Yes, indeed.
Love that.
Do you want to ask a question? Because I do.
Yeah, I do as well.
Go on, you go ahead.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say how much I love your name, sort of combining ecology and solution, because lots of people make a bold step in doing something ecological, but doesn't necessarily fit into a bigger pattern. And I think, doing something ecological for the sake of it, rather than thinking in terms of what does this link into? How does that link into that? How does that link into that? Then you're missing a trick. Like, with our chickens, I noticed that some of their waste yesterday when I was holding the bucket, it was so warm. It was really, really warm, and it was a rainy day and there's heat there. How can we use that? And so I think you're obviously working in a very connected way with what you know and do. And I see that connection as being excellent. So that wasn't so much a question, more an appreciation of you.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
and
Thank
we
you so
want
much.
you back. We want you back in a residency, basically. Now, can we put this into some sort of context and perspective here? Because a lot of people are moving to Portugal now, foreigners, immigrants, expats, call them what you will, and you may have a view on that. And we're keen to know how we can be excellent and extraordinary expats, making a good contribution, and not making a nuisance of ourselves in the country that we have moved to be part of and that we love. And so there's that part of it. How as specifically as foreigners can we be? I'm not going to use the phrase net zero because that has its its own sort of connotations. But how can we be less impactful, appropriate, sustainable as foreigners moving in? And what are we moving into? In Portugal, for a lot of us where we've come from, this is an amazing, beautiful country, and we think this is so fantastic. What the things we couldn't do back home, we can do here, like live in a less impactful way and a more sustainable way, maybe grow more food and those sorts of things. And then you talk to Portuguese people, and they're sometimes quite disgusted about the situation in Portugal, about how the government is, how the corporations are taking over, and so on. Could you talk to that and the picture that we're moving into, and how we can be great foreigners?
Okay, let me start by the end. Portuguese do complain a lot, and every time that they are complaining, they're actually not doing anything. So maybe we should also be compassionate about all this complaining and realize that we have a big heritage of fascism that it had actually culturally made us not do anything. Otherwise we would be in trouble. So it still is here after 40 years, and we should also we know how Portuguese culture is, complaining a lot and not doing so much, and that's okay, because new generations are coming, and these new generations are really full of energy, and they don't feel so much that old heritage. So on my generation, every father was still living on the fascism. On the new generation, not. So
Yes.
things are changing, and that's how sociological is. So some changes will only become available generationally. So generation after generation, and that is something that we actually need to also to accept. So, but I would say that the most sustainable way, even economically profitable way, is do not move to the cities, move rather to the fields. Because if you buy a house in one of the major cities or in Algarve, then you can maybe buy three, one for you and another one for each one of your kids. So that's how much that there is a huge difference on prices between cities and fields. And on the city, will be extremely hard, if not impossible, to be sustainable. Houses are already made. Another situation that I could actually tell you, that's the way, is if you can buy a plot of field in which you're building your own house, will be almost for sure cheaper than remaking or how would you say that once you buy a house that it's totally a wreck, and then rebuild. Exactly. Sorry.
Yeah.
So instead of rebuilding houses that have huge structural and sustainability problems, it's way a lot better if you create your own without all those problems, all that moist, all that insulation, all the electric infrastructure. So if you really want to be sustainable, I would absolutely start on energy.
Yes.
Energy, it's not going down, the prices, they're just going up and up and up. So from zero, from scratch, you really need to put it on a paper, your sustainability housing plan, in a way that you start by the energy. And energy, it's not only solar. Okay, it's pretty much what Ursula von der Leyen is saying. We need a menu of energies. Okay. Actually, so we need solar, we need wind. If we have a stream of water, then we would perfectly have also water generation, very low profile, so highly sustainable. It's not killing fish, it's not retaining waters, it's just profiting the flow of your stream. And if you manage to have biogas, okay, and I'm not, at least for now, a reseller of home biogas. I think it's an Israeli company. Then you should from start, because from 1999 that every house in China outside from the cities is having a biodigester. And why? Because it would be extremely expensive for the Chinese government to have all the sewage to treat, and all the WWTP stations to treat all those waters. So what they have been doing since already 24 years from now is obliging every constructor to create a biodigester in every each house that it's not on the cities. Why? Because all your food scraps, all your leftovers from your food garden, all the manure from your chickens, all your own manure and from the toilets will be going to generate energy. Generating energy for you to heat up your shower, generating energy for you to heat up your meal. That energy can be also converted to electricity. So once you have this energy menu, then you will actually not have the need of having lithium or lead acid batteries. Lithium is actually, I'm sorry to say that, but it's truth. It's one of the major causes nowadays of massive habitat destruction. Okay, and it's not only on the mountain that is being extracted. It's until 250 kilometers away. If it's near a water stream, and will always be near a water stream because they need really tons of water to be able to thermally separate the lithium. Okay, so that is the problem of lithium. But if you think about bleed acid, okay, maybe bleed acid, it's not such a big hassle to produce, but then it's not recyclable. The only thing that you can do with bleed acid, it's dump. It's just bury it somewhere, hoping that it will not go to the water wells and to the watersheds. So not having batteries, it's actually the best thing for you, because if you do have a battery, you will need to buy another one. And once that goes spent, you will need to buy another one, and then another one, and then another one. So the way that you can have the most sustainable energy, it's this menu, and use it in a micro scale, just the same way that every country is using it on a macro scale. So you need to put energy available on your network, and then use that energy from your network. Yes, it's true, there is always a bit of waste, because you always need a bit more energy producing and putting on the network than the one that you're using. It is true. But then you could also maybe invite these guys knowing a lot about Tesla. It will just go again to all these fields that we do not see, but actually all the air is full of electricity. Our table, our chair, ourselves, we are full of electricity. Our heart moves on millivolts, you know. So life is all about electricity. It's not being wasted. It's just being going to be able to then transform in another being, in another field, in another gravitational also a wave. So it's not being wasted, just being liberated. But if you want to start your sustainable life in Portugal, think about not buying already made house. Think about in building your own house, because this way you can also have your perfect house. Okay, so the house that I need, it's not absolutely the house that you need and anybody else's needs, you know. So once you start putting on a paper all your needs, you will find solutions for your housing, for your housing desires, and for your housing solutions, you know. And then after energy, it's absolutely about food, about the energy. When I'm talking about energy, I'm not only talking about a generation of energy. I'm talking about insulation. Okay, I'm also talking about not spending too much energy. I'm talking about not having old fridges that spend just 3 times more than the new fridges. I'm talking about not having the old vacuum cleaners that spend 4 or 5 times more than the new ones. You know, so it's always thinking about every problem and putting on the paper every problem that you always add in your life, in your housing, and then you will find that for each one of them, you will find a now readily available solution technologically, and sometimes that technology it's even simpler than the one before. You know,
Yeah.
so after energy, then we go to food. Okay, and food, it's great because it's not only on the budget that it goes. Okay, yes, it goes on the budget, but that's not the biggest turnover or paycheck that you get from food. What you get from food is purity, it's clearness, it's the sureness that your food is pure. You know that your food is not contaminated. And even on biological food, there are a lot of ways for food to get contaminated. So if we are using plastic to put this nice bag of plastic around the food, there will be microplastics. You know, not on your food garden, there won't be microplastics. Okay, it's also possible and even desirable not having micro watering systems with plastic. It's also extremely possible to have old systems that come from the Roman times, in which there will be very little waste of water, as the water is going again to your well. You know, and it's not evaporating to the atmosphere; it's going again to your well, and it's not making your plants dependent on that watering on a very shallow level of the ground. Then your roots can go deeper, and as the roots go deeper, the food goes higher. You know, so
Yeah.
and food is actually the second step of being highly sustainable and really healthy, and also really wealthy in a way that you can nearly not buy that food on a money level, exchange level, because the quality that your food has, the moment that you extract it from the ground, that you crop it from the ground and then you eat it, it's such a greatness. That is why that the first sin of humanity was taking the food from the tree and eat it
Yeah.
on that moment. Okay, so on this society level, then we can understand why is that the first sin. That's the first sin because that's actually the best thing that you can do for you, for your health, and also for your inner health. Okay, and then on a third level, that's why you can't. It's something that it's very hard for money to buy. Maybe if you go to a tourism, rural tourism or nature tourism that has a fruit garden. But the thing is that once you do gardening, you will never need spiritual counseling or psychological. Actually, yeah, it's true. You're
That's so
connected,
true. You know,
yeah, tell me.
before you came on, and I was saying about everything gets harder when you migrate somewhere. You know, there are extra stresses on you. One thing that has really saved me and our relationship, I would say, Carl, is being able to just be in the garden and dig and sow seeds and then marvel at all the tastes of all the things that are growing, and it's just it's such a blessing. We absolutely love it. I'm actually going to have to go now, but sending you loads of love. Where are you based, João?
I'm based in Fundão, that is Cova da Beira, okay, but actually I work all around the country, but my
Wow.
base and the House of Ecolution is in Fundão, where we are
Wow.
developing this active education program. You know,
Wow.
it's what we need. We don't need any more those lectures and those theoretical workshops and speaks. No, we actually need to put some dirt in our nails, some dirt in
Perfect.
our hands, and be
I've always got
another animal of the ecosystem. So
Yeah.
that was why you felt so good, because you
Mm.
became once again an animal on the ecosystem. And there is not in any place of nature there is unemployment. Only in humanity. No, it's a fact. It's a fact.
Yeah,
Only
no, I
humans
agree.
are unemployed. You know,
Yeah.
so any animal or any plant or any fungi or any bacteria is unemployed. They always know what to do by each
Exactly.
given moment. You know,
Yeah.
so that is why it's so strong, the feeling of making your own garden. It's because you once again you release yourself from those chains of culture, and you become once again the animal that we are. You know.
Yes. Amen to that.
Marvelous. Before you
Right.
go,
I'm going
hold
to
on.
leave you.
Can you because we've had best show ever from Sarah this morning. Thank you, João, for being here.
Yeah.
Love this show, says Owen. And why Mrs. M likes being out in the garden is because she can imagine burying Carl in there. I'm sure that's not true. Plants don't
Our
argue.
beds aren't deep enough, are they?
No, she's obviously been thinking about it. Bye, Mrs. Yeah, she said, can you make some deeper raised beds? Bye, Mrs. M. So see you later, love. Thank you very much for being here this morning. Much
Ciao,
appreciated.
ciao.
You.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
There she goes. Oh, she removed herself there. And we've got Em to bring on in just a moment as well. I'd love you to meet Em Mamabear McGowan talking about death and dying today, because she wants to talk about composting of bodies, which I think is not possible in Portugal at the moment. I'm aware we've only got a few minutes left in talking to you today, João. The first thing I want to ask you after what you've said is, will you come back?
Yes, of course. I'm there. Accept me on the team, and we'll be a team.
Yeah,
Sure.
fantastic. And I think it'll be so wonderful to see some examples of this, because often what people need is the inspiration of seeing other people doing this. I think you've inspired a few people this morning already with what you've been saying. And it would be lovely to see these projects in action and help empower people, and we can get the photos and the video of this actually happening. What occurs to me is you are asking people, inviting people, possibly inspiring people to live in a different way. It would appear we can't just keep expecting science, innovation, entrepreneurialism to help us just keep living the way we are. It's not really working, is it? So am I right in assuming that we do have to maybe analyze and adapt the way we live? And actually the options you're giving are actually far better for us as individuals and as a collective.
No, that is for sure. So obviously, that anyone that buys an electric car is having concerns with the environment. Obviously, absolutely. So otherwise, nobody would buy a more expensive car that has this question of batteries that will run out, and then another. So if that person is not concerned with the environment, the thing is that do not expect that the industry will educate you about all the impacts of the product. Do not expect that. That's a work that you need to do for yourself, and also with institutions like ours. That's why we are also here. We are not against any industry. We are here for helping also those industries to find better solutions in which their impact is not so high. And it's not only the impact on the environment, it's also the impact on communities. Because if you impact the environment, if you impact the resources, you will impact the communities. So did I answer to your question? Did I answer your question?
You did. And Pete brings something up here. Peter's put a few questions, and he's a neighbour of yours in Fundão. I think, making the remark that a lot of Roundup is used in Portugal. There is work to be done, and I'm very interested in how you have the idea that your vegetable garden is not polluted. I think what you were saying is it's less polluted, right? And it's about in which direction we're travelling rather than being holier than thou, like that.
Yes, absolutely, Carl. But it's also very possible and inexpensive, and part of the design of a living ecosystem, that you implement a lot of solutions that depollute your ground and that will defend you from things like glyphosate and all that very carcinogenic stuff that is being sold and is being even taxed over. And so it's really this topic, the society that we live in, and it's all about ignorance. So I do not believe that a politician is allowing that with believing actually that they are creating cancer, but they are. Yes, once you build. So if you want to be sustainable, if you want to have this high grade quality of life, then you need to build an ecosystem. Okay, we are still learning how to behave and interact with planet Earth. Planet Earth knows it already for millions of years. So if you create in your property all the elements of the ecosystem, like for instance these regenerative edges, so it's a line of trees that really go high also, and as they go high, they harbor a lot of birds. Those birds will be eating your blights. So every time that I see someone on Facebook saying, "Oh, I have all these snails and all these worms eating my," you don't have trees. I'm sorry. If you would have high trees, then all the birds that are eating it. So it's all about the trophic chain. So once you created all these elements of the ecosystem, then you will have this what we called or root barriers. It's root barriers that once the pollution is going inside the ground, then you will have these roots stopping them. Okay, and these roots with microorganisms will be degrading that pollution. Okay, and even fast annual herbs will be depolluting that field. So it's all about creating the same elements that a pristine ecosystem has, for you to be able to have really unpolluted food or nearly unpolluted food.
Yeah. I think we can't be completist about this, can we? Like, either or, and this is all the problems of our time, isn't it? This sort of polarity, duality. I think the important thing is to be heading in the right direction. And offering alternatives and for people to be able to freely choose. And I think that is one of the challenges we've got, is that whilst people might be able to see an option, they might not be able to freely choose and put it into practice because of how things are set up. So I'm hoping that we can see those practical examples, that we'll talk with you more, because I've got to bring Em on in just a moment to talk about death and dying. Which is
the cycle.
It's a cycle of life, and it's all part of what it's all connected. How we've been talking this morning, but we've scratched the surface and set the scene. Talking of scratching the surface, apparently, whenever you bury a body, cover it with endangered plants because it's illegal to dig them up. There's a solution. I think that's maybe some advice for Mrs. M. There. But João Oliveira of Mushmore.net. It has been so great to meet you this morning.
It has been great to talk to you.
I just said, will you come and be on the show? And you said, yeah, of course. And here we are. We didn't really talk very much. I just had a feeling it would be great to talk to you. And that has certainly been the case for me. I think you've made quite an impression on some of the other people here this morning as well, and Mrs. M. So do please come back. Let's keep in touch and let's see what we can do. Yeah, why don't we look at some sort of practical projects that we can document and share over time and really see how this can all be put into practice and how much fun it is, because that's the other thing, isn't it? The thing you were talking about, it's not all just worthiness, is it? Or being correct, being environmentally correct, spiritually correct, everything. This is actually has the ring of truth and vitality and well-being about it, as far as I'm concerned, and from what I've experienced of what you're talking about.
Well, I couldn't say that better. You know, it's all about action. Words are needed to create a concept that we can understand in our minds. But the only way, actually, that you understand and comprehend, it's by doing. You know, and that's the only way of learning. The only complete way of learning that I know of. You know, and once you do it once you learn by action, then you will become another agent of this ecosystem that sustains us. That's all about it. You know, words are fine, words are great for our mind to understand, but the only way to complete the cycle, like life and death, it's by doing. Okay. Thank you, Carl, so much. Thank you, Carl,
so much. Look at this. You're a legend. Thank you for sharing. Obrigado, João, as well from Owen. So we look forward to seeing you again. You better have some of this.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ciao, ciao. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
There he goes, João Oliveira of Mushmore.net, who I didn't ask him if he knew Adriel over there at Shimajito. So we need to refresh this screen here. And another round of applause, because now look who's here. The Mama Bear is in the building, everybody. McGowan, how are you this morning?
Good morning. Fantastic. Thank you.
And that was amazing, wasn't it? I think you were sat in the green room having a little bit of a listen to João there.
That was absolutely beautiful. I had a few things to lead on from that, if that's okay, because his eyes lit up when you mentioned human composting. It is a thing. It's a real thing. It's really good for the environment. It's the most sustainable, eco-friendly death thing that you can do, and it doesn't take that long to process. And then you can use you in the garden, which is fantastic. And yeah, and it would be one way to get around Portugal's the things set in place in Portugal have things a certain way which prevent eco-friendly burials. Well, eco-friendly composting, human composting, means that by human composting you could do it and it wouldn't be against any of the laws or anything in Portugal. So it would be accepted in Portugal if they'd just allow it in. So that would be fantastic for all of us here. And it means we'd finally get eco-friendly funerals, which is like, yes.
I think we're moving our way towards that, aren't we? With the right sort of encouragement. And again, inspiration and action, as we were just saying. Remember, says James, if most of us do at least a little, there will be a huge positive, net impact. So no one of us needs to do it all. And some people feel like they do, don't they? I spoke to Will Thompson yesterday. He's one of those people. He's doing well, sends his love, and he'll be joining us from time to time. I want my dead body to be composted after all viable organs and tissues have been harvested. Let me just say to everybody, we do have Portuguese sayings, we have deep thoughts, we have Yogi Berra quote of the day, a cue this, we've got a juice of the day, and we've got dad jokes and everything else that I've not yet managed to squeeze into this fantastic show so far. So that will not be omitted, it will just be delayed for today, and it looks like we might be here way after 10 o'clock because we need to speak to Em about death and dying. This is a new feature. Have we got Garvo to thank for the name The Departure Lounge?
It's Gary Austin.
Gary Austin. Sorry, I call him Garvo. Yeah. So he came up with that, didn't he?
So it was amusing. He came up with in share and care, and I was like, okay, hold on, Carl, what do you think to this then?
Yeah, well,
so
I think
it's very inspiring.
Yeah, and you've agreed, thankfully, to be with us once a month to cover this subject.
It's an honour.
Yeah, we're tackling the taboo. I think we when we last spoke, we covered the need to talk about death and dying from every aspect. The practicalities of being in a foreign country and what you need to do. And there are some serious things to get your head around, aren't there? And let's face it, a lot of people who are retiring here are moving towards that part of their lives where they perhaps could be thinking about these things, about wills, about making sure they've got the right kind of will, what
We
they
don't
want.
have to be actively dying or retired to do that, you know. I had a stroke and I was 37. We
Right.
can be okay one moment and something can happen where we're not. You know, people can get seriously ill at any age, so there is no time that's too early to make plans. And
Yes.
having plans, particularly a living will, puts things into action just in case anything should happen at any age. And it honors your where you are in that moment in your life, you know, at that current stage of your life, and it can grow with you. It can
Yes.
evolve with you. So living wills are just as important, in fact, probably more important than dying wills, because dying wills, you don't have to be present while they're all arguing over it. You know, you've gone, but while you're alive and there's all sorts of politics and things involved, you really want to have some form of control, especially if you're at that state of dying or being where you're not able to speak. Maybe you've lost your voice in something, but
Do
the
you know
rest
what?
of you's still there, maybe like locked in syndrome or something.
Exactly. And there are some key themes resonating this morning, because I think what you're talking about is a process, isn't it? That, you know, the only time to start anything is now, isn't it? And if we saw life as processes rather than as sort of judgments and rationalities, I mean, that you could say from an environmental perspective, that's why we're in the trouble we're in, is because we tend to think an idea, you know, have ideology about these things rather than be involved in the process of these things. And I love what you're saying there, because you're talking about starting the process of managing your death, managing what happens to your stuff, your possessions, and how you want your ceremony to be. That can be that doesn't have to be something you write down, put in an envelope as a big shock for everybody to have. You know, I want everybody to wear tartan and all my money's going to the Cat Protection League. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to come out of an envelope on the day you die, does it? You can have these conversations now.
Yeah. And the more we talk about things now, the
Yeah.
easier it is. And the grief is always hard. The grieving process really rips us into, it's like a tsunami. It can wipe us out for days, weeks, years.
Yeah.
And the harder the grief process is, the harder it is likely to be dependent on how hard things were when we were alive. So while we're alive and there's friction, there's resistance to truth, which results in a harder coming to terms and acceptance of what is, whatever it is that happens. So if we end up very sick, we have our own grief of the sickness and losing what we had, but we also have our friends and families coming to terms with our new physical capabilities, mental capabilities, and all the things that come with taking care of other people. You know, as we have to give up our independence, they end up, you know, and we become codependent, not by choice.
Yes.
We're kind of really all caught up. The more we talk about this now and gain some form of acceptance now, when these things happen, there'll be less resistance, there'll be more flow. It'll be like, okay, this is happening. How can we manage this? How can we keep quality of life? How can we do this in a well-balanced way? It's not just about doing, it's about being. So the more we are with nature and we see how nature flows with the seasons, the more we can apply that to our own lives, our own beingness. You know, as we be, in ourselves in any moment, we can feel our truth, and our truth will lead us where we need to go and tell us what we should be doing. So that's really important. We start to tune into our truth, our authentic self, and honor that, you know, honor our body, honor ourselves on every level.
That's
and by
superb.
doing that, we help everyone else.
Yeah. Okay. So we're opening up the space and the context to have those open conversations. Did you say truth resistance there? Because again, this is another resonant feature here, isn't it? Is this isn't just about death and dying, is it? This is all this. You could also extend this to the conversation we've just had with João. Is that if we're honest and truthful about what's going on, as Marvin Gaye once said, addressing these things back in the 70s, we might in the embracing and the honesty and authenticity and vulnerability of talking about things, we might actually improve things. But I think you observed there that there can be, I think you used the word friction. So we don't start those conversations, do we, out of the fear of what? Why are we not having those conversations, do you think?
Well, there's so many things. This is one of those, wow, firework. Yes. Which direction should we go? Hold on a minute. So fear, everything's fear-based. So we've got love and fear, and it's finding balance between that fear of death and what are our personal fears. I spoke to you just last week, wasn't it? And I got a message like, how do you talk so freely about this thing? And I said, well, I've done the work. And to be able to do this work, you have to look at your own personal fears. What happened in your life that made you look at death in a different way? So it was like, I have had friends taking their own lives through suicide. I've tried to take my own life many, many years ago. I've watched people get pushed into wanting to take their own life and then coming back from that. I've watched people dealing with and dancing that dance with death and serious illness. And I was in the stroke club and stuff. So my own personal dances with death, when I nearly died after I walked Hadrian's Wall in 6 days, all these different things have brought different memories. They've affected me in different ways. And I've had to sit with that. And I've had to say, well, how was it like for me when I was really dancing with death? How did I feel in that moment? What was the fears for me? What was, and what were the fears for other people? And what has religion told me? Where are my limiting beliefs? So as I grew up as a Christian, what did Christianity tell me and condition me to tell me that death was wrong? Or there's so many different, the more, as you know, I'm a non-denominational reverend, and you look at so many different things. So Buddhists practice fearless death. Then you've got the Christians who have a whole different way of celebrating life and forgiving you for your sins and all that, and then letting you go. And they don't like suicide, they really don't like that, or assisted dying and things like that. But it's all right for animals, but not for humans. But that's another tangent I could go off on. And you have all these different belief systems where everything's as you're told it should be.
Yes.
And one thing that we're not doing nowadays that often is we're not honouring our own true feelings, and we fear death. Death is now a very medical procedure. When I did a course with Glasgow University on dying, it was amazing because we got to see how, instead of it being something we have in the house, so people, you take care of those who are on the way out, and you love them and you celebrate them while they're there, and then you keep the body in the house before they go to the church, and then you send them off and you have a right good knees up, and that's how it was back then. People were used to seeing bodies. Nowadays, people are so scared to see a body. They're scared in case it's and death can be messy. We don't always go to sleep and just not wake up, which is quite a very clean death, especially with all the things that in the hospitals doctors, they pump our bodies full of all sorts of stuff to preserve life, keep us going longer than we should, and then wonder why we make such a mess when we've been fighting that process, and with that hung on to everything. When we go, it's a whole big, we're vomiting our way out of this life, and that's ideally not the best way to go.
No, and apologies if you're having a late breakfast this morning, but
sorry,
no, not at all. I just thought I'd say that. But what we're doing here, and this is a phenomenon that has gathered ground around the world. This is a kind of death cafe we're having here, isn't it? Right now, where the subject is being approached, and we're talking about it openly. And I think actually, who's this? Good morning.
He says, "Good morning, Carl. Good morning, people. Yeah. My name's Batty."
Was that Patty or Batty?
Batty.
Batty as in bonkers?
Yeah. He is a bit.
Excellent. All right. Okay. We have So in the spirit of the Death Cafe, and we've got our own word for it. Thank you, or our own term for it, the Departure Lounge, which we think is a little bit more sophisticated. Thank you very much, Gary Austin, with
Yeah.
that. And in the spirit of it, people are opening up and sharing with us, which is fantastic. Thank you for doing that, everybody. Let's go to your comments now, and that would be James. I want my body to be composted after all the viable organs and tissues have been harvested. And yes, we read that out before, but I think that is quite a useful contribution there, James. Not quite. It is a very useful contribution because it opens up the conversation on that front as well. Isn't sprinkling one's ashes a natural human recycling? Yes, it is. And a lot of people do that, but can you do it? Is that allowed here in Portugal, Em?
This has got a few grey areas, as with most things in Portugal. So
Right.
yes, the most eco-friendly way of dealing with the body is now in Portugal, because of the rules, is to get cremated. But then it's, where are you allowed to put them? Because certain areas in Portugal don't really allow you to scatter them in your own space. You're not allowed your own body in your own land.
Right.
Everything has to be done within the cemeteries or in special gardens and things. But there are different areas. So if you speak to someone, maybe your funeral director, some people say you can take them home and scatter the ashes. Some don't say that. So it's one of those things where it's very dependent on what they allow at the time, depending on who you speak to.
Yes.
In your camera.
Yeah, that's right.
Camera,
And often when you ask, it kind of it sort of evokes a lot of other things that you weren't expecting. I guess like,
but that's the thing again, it's dealing with fear. So anyone dealing with death,
yes,
those people that have done the work are really cool and flow with it, and those that aren't. So the best funeral directors are the ones that do work on themselves as well, and there's some
Very
amazing ones out there, you know.
Okay, point taken. Point taken. Doing the work on yourself, another very interesting area that I'm sure we'll return to in the Departure Lounge. New monthly feature here with Em Mamabear McGowan. So thank you for that, John. That'll be of John and Pam there on that particular ID. Once you've done it though, it's not like anyone's going to say you can't do that. You'll need to sweep that up now and put it back into the little pot there. I
am looking at something, Carl, at the moment to try and make a specific area to make this happen, to allow people to be able to come and plant a tree and put the ashes in. It's research.
Well, this is great. So we'll keep in touch with you on that. My own story, and forgive me if I've said this too many times already, but my own story of this was with my dad's ashes, with my two eldest daughters. We sprinkled his ashes in the water in Mudderford. Some people might know it. I think Andy who's tuned in, will know Mudderford. We put him in the water at Mudderford, and there he went. The ashes were in the water. We were never going to get those back if a council official said, "Hey, you can't do that." And then a condom floated past in the mix of water and ashes, and all of human life was there for a moment. And we thought that's what he would have wanted. And then later on, when I told my mum about this, my mum said, "You do know he couldn't swim, don't you?" Which is all part of the levity that you can enjoy when it comes to these sorts of things. Because eventually it does come, doesn't it? After the pain comes the relief. Stephen saying to James, assuming the harvesting is for transplant rather than animal. Yes. Although, waste not, want not. Gary Austin, whichever way you look at it, we all get recycled. Yes, indeed. It's how we do these things, isn't it? Not whether, I suppose. Nature wastes nothing, and I don't see why the human life force should be any different. Well said, Garvo, and thank you for the name, the Departure Lounge, which we're using here, of course, to a point. But there is the energy required for cremation and the residual exhaust gases. It's the last exhaust gas you give off in life, then, I suppose. And the ashes become mostly devoid of any composting benefits. So better to go for the old school burial and compost. Still better than embalming and burying in a casket for sure. Seems like James knows a thing or two about this. Fantastic. Don't tell Findus that you want all your organs recycled. Peter, you've been great value this morning. Grief is an emotional trauma, like any other injury to the body, immobilizes that part of the body for a while to protect it. Isn't that a lovely way of seeing it? It's an injury, and just like if you bang your knee it hurts and is out of action for a little while. Perhaps your heart is as well, or metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, I was just trying to really process, because Gary Austin has been known for going very deep. I really like when he says things, but it takes a moment to just sit with what he says, because he has so many gifts in when he says some of these one-word things or one-liners. You're like, wow, and then you sit with it a while, and then you go, yeah, wow, that's
right.
really is.
A few days later.
Yeah.
That's what he meant. Okay, the great Garvo. That's why we call him that.
He's got so many levels to when he says things. It really can strike you on a deep, beautiful place.
Indeed, agreed. Absolutely right. Shout out to you, Garvo. We see you, mate. Security, control the unknown. All fear triggers, of course. People don't. Thank you for that, James. People don't talk about death because it brings up emotions that they don't know how to deal with. So the conversation gets put off until it happens. Yes, this is what we are like as human beings, isn't it? And I don't think we should give ourselves a hard time for that. It's a great observation, Stephen, at which point we are already in trauma. And then we're not in the best place, arguably, to deal with it. Learning to deal with our feelings, emotions now, not later, is a first good step. That's a good insight, isn't it, Em?
They say what they say is that pain pushes until the feeling pulls. So sometimes it needs something that painful to really, this is why people with serious illness and stuff, and who usually lose everything and find themselves in some spiritual context. And that's why it happens, because sometimes we're too scared to look at it until we've got no other option than to sit with that. I wasn't able to talk to my granddad or with my nana about death until he'd had his stroke and I'd had mine, and we were sat there laughing at how we couldn't get peas. We was sitting at the dinner table like you do with your grandparents, and his peas were flying off his plate, mine were flying off mine, and my nana was like, Bruce, Emily, what, look at this mess.
Honestly.
Yeah, and me and my granddad going, oh, this is all right, isn't it? And it really brought us about this understanding, this mutual connection, how all of a sudden we both knew what it was like to not really have control of our peas or anything else with that matter. And it allowed us to connect and start talking. So then we started getting deep and talking about death and what we wanted to happen. My nana left the table. She didn't want to hear it. But we had a really deep chat.
Beautiful.
It was just after then that I said, Grandad, can I record you? Like, can I listen to your stories and can I record you on my phone?
Wonderful.
Yes, Emily, love. So I did. And his telling me stories and me asking and us connecting, even over the stories I'd heard many, many times before, meant that when he did go, when it was his time, I was able to turn that into a CD and gift it to the family members.
Wonderful.
And that we all then got that part of Grandad that no one else had dared to venture into. And we've all got that ability.
He lives on. He lives on, doesn't he? Yes.
Yeah, but to connect to and allow that person to really celebrate the life and share the life with you in a different way and get to a different depths of what the truth is and the feelings in that moment. And it's so beautiful.
That sounds wonderful.
That's part of living consciously so we can die consciously. That's part of the journey.
The great leveler of losing pea control united you and your grandfather and gave us that lasting legacy. That's fantastic, Em. Thank you for that. See, this is what happens when you have a death cafe, aka the Departure Lounge, here on the Good Morning Portugal show. Fascinating conversation this morning. Love it. Cheers, Phil. Whoop, whoop. And verdad to Stephen from James there. I've had my funeral playlist sorted out for decades. Trick of the Tail by Genesis, Cathedral by Crosby, Stills and Nash. Fantastic. What about Don't You Want Me, Baby? I don't know, maybe it's inappropriate. We are destined to die one day, which we have no experience of personally. However, I wonder, therefore, if we are destined to be born. See, there he goes again, right? Thank you, Garvo. Oh, yes, very good, Stephen. Contact details, website for Em, please. Em, how do we get in touch with you?
Well, if you're on Facebook, go on to Share and Care Portugal.
Yep.
I haven't got a website. There's lots of transitions going on at the moment. You can get me through WhatsApp, Messenger and Telegram, and I'll sort something out with Carl so that he can put all the details onto wherever they need to be. well
Yeah,
we get
well,
things.
we've got. I'm developing
Because-
a meet the team kind of page for Good Morning Portugal, so you'll definitely be able to contact Em through that if you haven't got anything else. I'm very
Thank
happy to
you.
take care of that for you, Em. Sorry,
Deb's website the website for sharing care got shut down
Right.
not long after she died, and then my websites, I had 4 websites, that all shut down because there's been massive changes in life for me with sharing care for everything.
Yeah.
So it required a whole new, everything came to an end, and everything's being reborn. This is part of the rebirth of Good Morning Portugal. It's part of the rebirth of sharing care. You know, it's beautiful how the journeys are running alongside in that way. It's
Yes.
been a total rebirth for me, you know, and me and my little buddy, my fur buddy here. You know,
Yes.
it's nearly a year since he came into my life. So it's really interesting how, because death always brings about rebirth, there's always so much grace and so much gifts hidden amongst that, and we can tune into that if we allow it. You know, if we make room.
And the mere detail of having a website for you will be something that we can just take in our stride as a community. We'll make sure that happens. That's not a problem. You've got more important things to do, so we'll gladly take care of that. Bring me sunshine. That's what Phil wants in his funeral playlist there. Don't go to a crematorium with all your jewelry on. It'll get sifted out. My dad used to say that. Yeah, leave it with the family. You don't want to be buried like an Egyptian with all your gear around you, do you? And a few slaves. Don't do that. It's inappropriate. Preparing a will can be very helpful in preparing for one's eventual end of life in this body. So let's deal with that. You know, Daniel Ray's, of course, we've spoken to on the Breakfast Show. He knows how to. Certainly, can put you in touch with somebody who can create a will for you if he doesn't do it himself. And also the assignment to make sure your original will in your original country is observed in Portugal. That's an important thing.
Can I mention there about wills as well?
Yeah.
If you're wanting to move to Portugal and you're wherever you are, then your will still stand when you move to Portugal. So make sure it's sorted before you get it.
Yeah.
If you're already here and you're a resident here, and then you go and get your will done in the UK, it will not stand. It will not stand if you get it done after the date that you're resident in this country.
Oh.
So then you have to go through a notary, and you can go to your local notaries and get one written up. But
very
remember
good.
that's the important bit. Over here, once you're a resident here, if you've got no will in place, you can't just go anywhere else and get it done. You have to get it done in Portugal.
Because you are a resident here, and you're bound by the law here. Very good. Thank you for that, and a thank you generally, I think, from Simon and Fiona there. To an extent, do you not have to at least respect that as a predominantly Catholic country, burial is the traditional method? I just wonder if there is a possibility. Where do we go from here? Live services and being able to see it online after. Have we missed something out there?
I'm not sure, but I think I've got an answer.
Okay, go on. Yeah, carry on.
Okay, so when Debbie transitioned, I was able to put a funeral service on for those that didn't manage to come from the UK. Carl, you were part of that.
Yeah, indeed.
And it was broadcast to different countries, and we were able to do the funeral service in that way.
Yeah.
So it is possible to have an online funeral service. It's perfectly okay to do so. It just because it's the standard way of doing it, the Catholic way, doesn't mean you have to do that. If you choose to be cremated, you can have your service in the house of rest or chapel of rest, whatever you call it, and then the body will go to the crematorium where you can have another little service there. It doesn't have to be Catholic, you know. You don't need to have any of that. If you do want that, then that is possible. You can have that traditional Catholic burial Portuguese way, but you don't have to have it. You have a choice.
And there's a note here, isn't there? Is that is what happens with death often, is if you don't specify what you want to happen, you will go the way most other people go in the tradition of where you are, whether that be Portugal or somewhere else, right?
Well, you assume that you're supposed to do it that way.
Yes.
And if you don't know you have a choice, it's like with living and dying, isn't it? If we assume we don't have a choice, we do what we're told.
Yeah.
And then it's really uncomfortable and we don't have a choice and we don't know what's happening. Well, when we take our power back, when we research this stuff, when we talk about things, when we face these things through death cafes and things like here in the Departure Lounge, we're able to sit and talk. We learn about our choices. We learn how to honour ourselves while we're living before we pass. We're able to honour those who do pass by knowing there's choices, by knowing where we can go, what we can do and how we can do it. All those different bits of info which you'll get through me and Carl and through Share and Care and things, all these bits will help you. That's like a jigsaw as you explore, you know, this part of living, and it will take you to a whole new depth and a new adventure, you know.
Well said. Well said. Oh, Phil's got to go. Have a great day, Phil, and good luck at the poker table there. This is wonderful. Thank you for that question, Pete. Woohoo! I made it back before the end of the show. Nice one, T Duck. Exclaim! Oh, I think Sarah liked my little anecdote there. By Randy, Mudderford Key, great memories. It wasn't one of your condoms, was it? By Randy. Get back to the UK. Okay. So you're able to do the well. I mean, I think I've been to 2 or 3 funeral services via Zoom recently. It is part of what happened, isn't it, in the pandemic time? That may have been, I guess, what you could call a blessing, that you can actually take part in a way that you thought you wouldn't be able to, and it might have seemed a little bit inappropriate before, but the pandemic and Zoom combo has made that kind of standard practice in many ways, isn't it? Nice to see Em looking so well, says our friend Fiona Worrell here. She is blooming. Very interesting conversation too. Cheers, Fiona. Thanks for being here. I don't want to be embalmed. Can you avoid this in Portugal? Practical question.
Yes, absolutely. You don't get embalmed in Portugal because there's no point, really.
Right.
To get embalmed in Portugal, you have to pay extra. You have to actually really make a point of saying, I need to be embalmed or whatever, to be flown off to wherever country, if that's what you want to do. But being embalmed isn't something that's necessary because you're pretty much in and out.
No messing about. Oh,
yeah,
that's a joke my stepdad used to say to me, whose funeral I watched on Zoom actually, not so long ago. But little boy arrives at school and the teacher says, "Why are you late?" He says, "Sorry, miss, my dad got burnt this morning." And she said, "Oh, I hope it wasn't serious." And the kid says, "No, they don't piss about at the crematorium." Okay, we're having a light-hearted look at death and dying this morning, clearly. I wasn't talking about a legal will, but a written message to say your goodbyes. This is more the living will sort of thing, isn't it, that you're talking about, Em, that James is mentioning here, and about how you want your death to be handled. Living will, directions.
Living will.
Okay, and this, if you're a resident here and you haven't made this before, you need to take it to a notary and have that. I mean, we can have conversations and support people in doing this as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Right.
There's a place now, I'm not sure because I don't know how to type it out for you, but it's called theconversationproject.org. If you go to there, there's loads of free resources and little booklets that you can download, and that will help you have the talk. You can have the talk with me, by all means, or someone else that you love and trust. And it will talk you through all your different things for your living will and your power of attorneys and things you need to talk about, the questions you need to ask yourself. Yeah. Now, it's part of the work you do as a doula. So I work as a death doula. So I help birth people out of this from living to dying. And part of the work I had to do was to do all this and go through the book and answer the questions for myself. And some of it really it takes you to a whole new depth of being and self-understanding. And it's really quite a challenge. That shows you where your work lies in the first place and shows you where you really need to do your work. Wow. So as those questions come up, if you download it and you're going through, reach out, even if you just want to sit and cry, and that's cool. We'll sit and cry together if need be, and we'll work through it.
Thank you, and that's so beautiful. And we did talk last time, didn't we, about the possibility of a residential weekend, a retreat. you know, where people do get together and talk about these things. Maybe people who are solo here in Portugal as expats, foreigners, immigrants arriving here might find that weekend very useful to make these arrangements with supportive and similarly minded people. So we'll look at that. There's only so much you can do in this environment, and it has its limitations, but I think we made a cracking start this morning. And we'll look at having a weekend, perhaps a get together where we can celebrate life whilst talking about death. Can you be plasticized? Asked Pete. I quite fancy being an ornament. No offense,
Well,
Pete.
yeah, you can. You
Right.
can. And I think he's called Gunther von Hagen, and he's an amazing German artist. And I went to his exhibition, and he plasticizes the people and slices them up into the most interesting things, and it teaches, and it's all about teaching you about health and your body's health and what happens to your body in different states of health, and he challenges you on many levels as well. So check that guy out on the internet, and you can donate your body to science and have it used maybe in that way. People leave their body to him specifically for him and his artwork. So
they do, don't they? I have seen that exhibition. It was on in Sheffield when I lived there. He's a frightening looking fella as well. He looks like if there was a movie
like
made
the Undertaker or something, like a wrestling,
like 100-year-old Tom Waits. He looks like, doesn't he? Quite the fella. So I think Pete's got himself down as a kind of life-size sex toy, is what I'm thinking. Which you've got to be careful who you give that to as a Christmas present, Pete.
You better sticking that in ashes and having it siliconed.
Oh, okay, there you go. Some free advice for you there, Pete. Or a video message. What's that? The point is to look deeply at your world after you've gone, and that's what we can do here. That's what we might do at this weekend we're talking about. The point is to look deeply at your world after you've gone, the world that remains. Now, this is what you brought up for me when you were talking about your granddad. Your granddad's legacy, his personality remains, and that was made possible by the conversation you had, by the sound of it.
Not just that, it was the history. He was a boss at Rolls-Royce, and he talked about some of the times of the changes through Woodford and the different planes that he's worked on and stuff. And what he shared just through, like, I didn't try and take it in any other way. I just allowed him to be and to speak, and I just loved it. And through those things, I've managed to get pieces of history that no one would have seen. I've got teachings like that I can take from that it would have been impossible to get any other way. So it's learning the legacies you can leave while you're still here, but also after someone's gone, then honoring the legacies they've left behind. But it's remembering that while we're alive, honor that, live, improve your quality of life. Now, don't wait till someone dies to do it. Don't wait till the last minute.
That's why we're going to do some stretching and make a juice in just a minute. Okay. Do you want to stick around for that and the dad jokes?
Yes.
Okay, right. A last comment then on this from Gary. Thank you for being here, Em, this morning. This is fantastic. Looking forward to the next time we do the Departure Lounge, and let's get that retreat sorted out where people can talk. Great conversation today about a very important part of life, and it proves that we can talk about death more comfortably. And thank you for being a part of making this happen, Gary, as well. And certainly to you, Em, for standing for this. This is what you are in our lives, in our community here. Somebody who stands for that being a possibility. And it happened. It happened this morning. So thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you for that. Yes, feeling that. And by Randy, some very interesting and thought-provoking subjects today. What about the geezer belly flopping into the plonk? Let's do that now, shall we, by way of a palate cleanse. Now, there are things you can put in your mouth for a palate cleanse. Here's another way of doing it, folks. Now, would you drink that wine after it got made, Em?
No.
You see, when you realise that people pee in pools, they may not draw the line there at the grape harvest. Let's just see that one more. There's always one. That's got to be Pete Bleach, I think, at the at the grape crushing. Full body grape crushing there. Okay, let's go back. I will tantalize you now with a picture of juice of the day. We've got a few actually. We've got the ingredients too. Here are some spinach leaves. It's going to be spinach based. We have got juice of the day here from Owen. Then spinach, apple, cucumber, lemon. And baby spinach is in there, which is an excellent source of vitamin K, vitamin A, vitamin C, and folate, as well as being a good source of manganese, magnesium, iron, and B2, vitamin B2. Vitamin K is important for maintaining bone health. And who doesn't like bone health first thing in the morning? And it is difficult to find vegetables richer in vitamin K than spinach. That's why he's strong to the finish, because he eats his spinach. He's Popeye the Sailor Man. Cucumbers are low in calories, but high in many important in vitamins and minerals. The devil's fruit, some call it, though. It contains antioxidants and promotes hydration. It may help in weight loss and lower blood sugar levels. Check my cucumber juice recipe. Apple. Apples are nutritious and good for weight loss. They can lower the risk of diabetes and promote good gut bacteria. It can help prevent cancer and help fight asthma. Lemon helps weight loss and helps promote overall body immunity. Put them all together and you get this juice that has been made by Owen for us today. I would drink that. Look at all those lovely ingredients. I'd be tempted to nibble on those too in the process, and a few ice cubes in there. Thank you, Owen, who is working on his own jingle at the moment. That's going to be fantastic. I wanted to share this picture with you. Look at this lovely lady. She is Laura Cardoso. Does anyone know her from Portuguese TV? 95 years old and taking a very beautiful portrait like that. 70 of her 90 years dedicated to TV. Well, I think we need to find out more about that legendary lady there. Just wanted to share that with you. While we're on the juicing area there, from the Good Morning Portugal Food and Wine community, they're over there on Facebook. Look at this, what Frank's made. He's Fourth Friday Frank. He'll be with us on the fourth Friday of the month in his residency. This is Bifana, the Middle Eastern version. I am feeling really hungry looking at that. We got Yogi Berra to come. Let's find him. Nope, not that one. It'll be this one. Thank you very much to you, James, for sharing these with us this morning. We have a lot of scrolling to do all the way back to the beginning of the show, which feels like it started yesterday sometime. It's been amazing. We have been here. Well, we're way over our 10 o'clock deadline, but it's been important to do so, I would say. Yogi Berra, then, where are you? James. We might have to come back to him when oh, no, we've got it. Yogi Berra quote of the day: 90% of the game is half mental. He's like Garvo Austin is Yogi Berra, and that's him in his ball playing days, and that's him, I believe, at his retirement match. A much loved philosopher, really, everyday philosopher, like a Zé Pavino from baseball and American culture. There, thank you so much for those pickies, James. Let's go to the Portuguese saying of the day, which will be "Pior é ter mau médico que estar enfermo." It is worse to have a bad doctor than to be sick. The remedy is often worse than the disease. Ain't that the truth? A deep thought of the day. Lots of deep thoughts. Perhaps the final one today. Then act as if you do make a difference. It does. Now, isn't that prescient and appropriate today? That's fantastic. Thank you, T-Duck, for that. That's from William James, the American philosopher, historian, and psychologist, and the first educator to offer a free psychology course in the United States. That's beautiful. God Squad tip of the day, then, from Coach Turner. The lunge, feared by some, loved by others. Who doesn't like a lunge first thing in the morning? Standing with feet slightly apart, pick up one leg and place the foot as far forward as you feel comfortable, and lower your hips and shout "touche" while you're doing it. That's my addition, not Ian's. Your rear knee should almost touch the ground. Hold for a couple of seconds, then rise back up. Easier said than done. And bring your feet back together. If it hurts, stop and build up to this gradually, and maybe have somebody in the room with you at the time. Repeat on your other leg. Fantastic. Nice. Ladies, what lunge? Perhaps might be doing that later on today. Cue this: the difference between what we do and what we are capable of doing would suffice to solve most of the world's problems. That, again, is a beautiful quote to share from Mohandas Gandhi in this company today. Thank you very much. And then finally today, dad jokes. We are with Philomena on Friday, for those who are asking, and with Gilda tonight on Migration Tuesday at 9 o'clock. But before then, Dad jokes. You have been warned. Why do ducks fly south, Emma? Sorry, I'm calling you Emma. Why am I doing that? M is short for
Emily.
Emily,
But
not Emma.
still,
I'm
people call me all sorts, and I just
all right.
answer to them.
Forgive me. So, M, why do ducks fly south, M?
No idea.
Too far to walk? Okay. You're responding well. Much better than Michael Heron the other day. I accidentally took my cat's meds last night, M. Don't ask me how. You're loving these. I like it. A clean house is the sign of a broken computer. That is so true. And don't forget about the T-Duck, another lovely little reminder from T-Duck. Don't forget about the San Martino meetup tomorrow. See you there on the Silver Coast meetup. And it was so good to have João here this morning, João Oliveira, wasn't it? Mushmore Co-op Evolution, a great morning, early birds. That was his greeting. And then he came on and told us what he told us, which was fantastic. And we will have him back. And we will, of course, have M back. Em Mamabear McGowan will be with us for the next Departure Lounge, which, what is it today? It's a Tuesday, isn't it? Troubleshoot Tuesday. Yeah. The second Tuesday of every month. Right, okay. So we look forward to seeing you then again. Em, thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye for now to you and to Batty. Ciao, ciao. See you, Batty. Bye-bye. What a love. Okay, we're going out. We'll see you. Ciao for now, and we'll see you again in the morning. Where is my intro music? Oh, here it is. Bye.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GuMPer morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GuMPer. Hey, GuMPers.